What's up, DAW Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Behind the DAW. And in this week's episode, we have Jack Leach, also known as Nurko. Now, if you don't know who Nurko is, how do you live under a rock, but you're listening to a podcast? A podcast, maybe a cave. You live in a cave, a Wi-Fi enabled cave, but only with podcasts, but not with internet, but the podcast is on the internet. So how did you... Anyways, if you don't know Nurko, he's had collaborations with people like Millennium, Adventure Club, Halion, Dabin, Griffin, Said the Sky, all the sad boys. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about things like how to enjoy making music even when life is super stressful, how to get back that childlike wonder with creating music. We're also going to talk about how to deal with rejection and self-doubt inside the music industry. And we're also going to get a very personal story of how Nurko just went through a very intense breakup and how he's channeling that energy into making better music. By the way, if you're brand new to Behind the DAW and the DAW Nation family, my name is Wyatt Troy, and this is a podcast where we interview music producers, singers, songwriters, music industry experts, and everyone else on that spectrum on an emotional, philosophical, branding, marketing, and music business basis. Basically everything that you need to know except the technical side, Ableton and Logic and automation and mixing and mastering and all that kind of stuff. We talk about that over on our In the DAW series. Go check that out. And if you like this episode and you really like Nurko's style of music, then you will love The School Bass by AU5. This is AU5's definitive sound design masterclass. This is where he's going to teach you how to make an unlimited amount of rhythms, textures, sounds, basses, blasters, leads, anything that you can think of is inside of there. It's the same system that he has been using on over 200 songs for the last 15 years. So if you want to learn more about that, go ahead and click the link down in the description or head on over to where is that? What's the link? Oh yeah, dawnation.net/schoolbass. With DAW Nation, with all that out of the way, let's go behind the DAW with Nurko. Wait a second. Hold on. I forgot to mention that there's a free download from Nurko. You can get it down in the description. Okay, now let's really go behind the DAW with Nurko. I want to welcome you back to another episode of Behind the DAW. And today we have Jack Leach, also known as Nurko. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing pretty well.
Jack, if you'd be so kind to catch people's attention here, what is one of the worst decisions you made for your music career?
Losing track of, why I started in the first place, which the more your artistry becomes a business, you sometimes tend to lose focus on just the kind of like that childlike love you have for music that you start just getting in the studio and just messing around with things and making art, and then just having your mind get filled up with just deadlines and music business stuff, and it kind of sometimes overpowers all of that stuff. And sometimes it's important, I think, to focus a little more on just the love for music, which is why I would think most of us are doing it in the first place.
Oh boy, Jack. Yeah, I can already hear DAW Nation right now saying that's absolutely true. The stresses are going to come, right? The deadlines are going to come. The rejections are going to come, and all that's going to get in the way. The financial pressures are going to come. What's one thing that really strips that love of the music creation out of you? Like, what's one of those things you're just like, I hate a whole bunch of things, but this is one of those things that just drives me crazy, that rips me out of that childlike love for creating music?
It would be the deadlines, because deadlines are really good for, if you're writing a financial paper and getting your data done. But for art and for creativity, sometimes it's just putting a deadline on it in itself just completely strips away the kind of that love and that fun you have making it. Creativity sometimes isn't able to have a deadline, and a lot of times that reflects in the music. At least some of my music that I put out in the past. It's tricky because if you don't meet those deadlines, also if you take too long, the audience, the music, the way Spotify works and all that is very fast paced. So you kind of have to find this fine line of getting stuff out or getting stuff done quick, but not killing yourself over a deadline stuff.
Deadlines, I mean, they're essential. I mean, if this is a business, if we're making money off of it, if we're trying to grow, deadlines are super important, right? Deadlines are just another word for goals. Has there been anything that you found that the deadlines suck less? Because I haven't. Deadlines just suck. Have you found anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, I would say managing your time better, trying to manage your time better. I'm super unorganized. Naturally, I've always just been really like kind of a messy person. But I've noticed if you like have like a whiteboard and you like write down, what you're going to work on today, and you kind of just say like, what I do is I'll be like, all right, I'm going to be in the studio from 12 a.m. to whatever, 12 p.m. And that's a long day. That's like 12-hour day. But I'll be like, I'll work on this song for this amount of time. And then once that time's over, I'll just stop and I'll move to the next one. And so it's kind of like a little bit more structured. So you start to feel a little bit like you have a little bit more control over it. It's not just this big mess. Cause like when it's like really unorganized, that's when I notice that the deadlines have a hard time being met, which I'm struggling with right now, as I'm saying this, because the deadlines are not going anywhere.
So, DAW Nation, what a wonderful answer that Jack has given us. Now, make sure to stay all the way to the end, because at the end of this episode, we're going to be asking Jack what is the best decision that he's made for his music career. You've been doing some wonderful things. Your art speaks for itself. Is there anything else that you've been doing that has helped you hold on to that childlike love of music creation? Besides, yes, keeping a schedule, super important. What else? What else do you got?
For me, I know this. They say it's important not to buy too many plugins and stuff, or like get too many plugins. But for me, when I buy a new plugin and I just go in and I explore it, it's almost like you're a child and you're getting a new toy and you're able to just have fun with it. So like I'll have days where like I'm not really making anything. I'm just kind of like messing around with the plugin. And that's how I get that childlike wonder and love for it, because you're like killing two birds with one stone. You're having fun with the new plugin, but you're also like learning its mechanics, and then you're able to use it in your projects once you kind of get comfortable with it. But then there's some plugins that just don't end up working out for you and you end up not using them, but that happens.
What a good little pro tip there, right? Which is you download the plugin and by virtue of being in the DAW, you're just tweaking with stuff, you're playing with stuff, it's getting your creative juices going, you're seeing all the possibilities. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, and I think companies like Splice, they've caught on to that a little bit, so they make it really easy for you to like you can do like rent to own, where you pay like $10 a month for Serum 2, whatever it is, and you can go explore Serum 2. You don't have to like pay for, because I know a lot of these plugins, they get expensive. So recommend that for sure.
What's your thoughts on Serum 2? Are you happy with it? You think it's pretty dope?
I'm happy with it. I'm like looking at all like Virtual Riot's doing the tutorials with it, and I'm just like, I'm not even going to act like I knew everything about Serum 1. So Serum 2 is just like mind blowing to me. A bunch of stuff I'm probably never going to use, but if the fact that they thought of those things are like, it's just insane.
Serum 2 comes out and you see the people like Virtual Riot and AU5, and it's like, man, they're already on Serum 3 with how they're using Serum 2.
Yeah. Like AU5 doing stuff in Serum 1. I'm like, I didn't even know it. Serum 1 did that. So what am I to go over to Serum 2 when there's like a whole gold mine with Serum 1 I haven't even touched into yet,
Before we started recording this episode, we were talking about some of the things that's been on your mind, and you expressed that one of the things, especially because we were just barely talking about, stress with releasing music, getting deadlines done and stuff like that. That's a nice segue into talking about some of the things that, that are on your mind with the music industry. One of the things that you were talking about before we started recording is how the music industry is a revolving door. Can you give us some insight into what that means?
Yeah, basically it seems that like the music that's kind of at the forefront in a sense of like what's the popular genre at the moment tends to have its time of day, and then it kind of cycles, and then the next one kind of comes in, and it's always changing, but it's always revolving. So I was just saying, like, melodic based, like the kind of stuff like me and Millennium and Said the Sky Dabbin and stuff are making, I feel like isn't quite at the forefront in the same way that a lot of the I don't know what it would be, like tech house and stuff like that. That seems like to be right now like the big like Coachella is booking all those acts and stuff. Melodic bass it's kind of come back to the forefront, and then house might take a back seat. I've just kind of noticed it over the years of how the genres kind of shift. It happened with dubstep and with all the different subgenres of dubstep. It just seems like it always kind of changes. So the point of that is that like don't go and make what's popular and what's hot. Make what you love, because it's gonna come back eventually. As if you're just doing it because that's what's popular, probably gonna be popular for a little bit, but it might take a back seat in like a year or two or whatever, however long it is. So I'd rather just make the stuff I love and, let it run its course, let the industry kind of run its course.
Because at the heart of what you're saying, if I understand you correctly, is that so like a revolving door, things are always moving, things are always changing, but they always come back around. So melodic bass maybe isn't at the forefront right now like it was a couple years ago, right? But does that mean, because things are changing, does that mean that you have to kind of abandon the melodic bass stuff and start just focusing on what's popular right now? I would argue no, right? Is that what you're saying as well?
Yeah, I would argue no. I think it's always nice to if you like that stuff, to mess around with it and make that kind of stuff. But only do it because you like it. Don't do it because it's like, oh, this is the new big genre that's like everybody's playing at festivals. And if that's the case, it's just gonna feel kind of unfulfilling, I guess.
That does bring up a question. So before I was doing my due diligence and listening to the other interviews that you've done, and so I listened to the Sidewalk Talk one that you did, and in there you were mentioning you actually really do enjoy making bass music. There was kind of this pressure there was the fear of confusing the audience, right? If you started making that type of music, that may confuse the more melodic bass audience that you have. Is that still a fear? Is that still something that's going through your mind?
A little bit, yeah. It's not really that it's a fear. Like I'll do it, but it just seems like it never really works out. I mean, it depends on the artist, but for me, it's not received quite the same way as my sound, I guess you can say. My like if I just do a random like bassy track or whatever, it may be good, but people aren't really gonna like on Spotify. I can see like it significantly streams lower than, because I did like a two songs I think on my last EP that were kind of like trying new stuff, and those two were just they weren't bad, but they didn't stream like the other ones. So it depends on the artist. I mean, I feel like somebody like Cranked At, where he kind of just like does so much variation. It just works with him because he's such a like bass. I feel like being a bass artist tends to give you a little bit more flexibility. But when you do this like sad boy stuff, it's almost just like, what is this random dubstep track? It's weird. I don't know. It's weird.
How did that feel releasing those two bassier tracks and not getting as much? What is the term? As much love, as much reception as the other ones? You know what I mean?
Well, I kind of was expecting it just because, but I kind of just wanted to put it out because I was like, oh, I had fun making this, so I want to just put it out. That's why so many artists do like side projects or other aliases. Having an identity is kind of important for your project. You don't want to go like too all over the place.
Speaking of your project, one of the things that I love so much about your project is your visual side. Right, especially that nice. I mean, how would you define it? Like a light blue, a cyan blue? Like what's the terminology?
This blue theme. It's kind of I don't know what you would call it, but I just like everything just has this kind of vibe to it, and we try and keep it pretty consistent everywhere. Like all my shows, whether it's a festival or my tour, the majority of the time you're in this like blue lighting. That's why like a lot of my pictures on Instagram aren't even edited like to the like he didn't like add that color. That was just the way the room was. So
on a business standpoint, on a branding standpoint, I think it's awesome. I could foresee some people maybe pushing back and saying, because you've kind of painted yourself into this kind of monochromatic box, it could cause issues. But has it? We got Nurko here telling us right now. Has that caused any issues as far as branding goes?
No. I mean, we definitely, it could have caused some issues in the sense that when I play harder stuff, like when I'm playing shows, I'm playing a lot of like more like headbanger type music. The blue kind of isn't really the vibe, but my VJ is, he works with us with kind of keeping it innovative. And so whenever we play the harder stuff or bassier stuff, everything goes like red, blue, and then the red is for like the harder stuff. But I'm not the first person that's done that, but it does kind of help the at least the live aspect. And then we did a little bit on the my last EP because I had some of those harder tracks on there.
Little side quest, because I forgot to ask this when we were talking about the things that keep the childlike wonder of creating, is also in that Sidewalk Talk interview you mentioned that you like Elden Ring. Jack, I didn't know that. That was a revelation to me, my guy. That is amazing. Did you beat it? Did you beat the DLC? Like, the people want to know.
I beat the base game, but then in the DLC, the final boss of the DLC I didn't beat. I was like, yeah, this is just too hard. Yeah, I gave up. I was like, this is just insane.
What kind of build did you have?
Dude, I tried everything. I tried having a strength build. I tried having like a bleed build where you're doing more like piercing stuff, because I saw that he was like weak to pierce. But just once you get to that second phase, it's just like I was just like stimuli just coming everywhere at you. It's just you don't have a second to breathe in that fight.
So the reason why I bring this up specifically with Elden Ring is I have to assume that you are like most of us, where one of the biggest things that helps us with our art is to actually step away and to go partake of other art. In this case, it's Elden Ring. I mean, would you agree with that?
100%. Yeah. I mean, I think I'm just, as like a spectator of the video game industry, I'm really interested in just their whole art, like different games, the what goes into it, and just the story and everything. It's almost like we're not taking ourselves out of music, because we're just taking like a backseat to see another form of art and how music is used in the game and stuff like that. It's
not taking you out of the music. It's allowing you to look at art basically like from a different angle, right? In order to bring it back in. Yeah, because I can hear people responding in the comments right now saying, no, this is a distraction. It's keeping you from working on stuff. It's not. Anyways, yeah, it's just a distraction. So for those people saying that, yeah, how would you respond to them?
Everything in moderation, and I think video games in moderation is very good. Is healthy for music creation if you view it as an art form itself. But yeah, I could see it being a distraction if you're just like all day long just playing it, and then it becomes a little bit of an issue. But some days you need that kind of stuff. You don't need to be grinding on. You don't want to like grind too much, where it's just like unhealthy. Video games are they're an art form itself.
Tell me, it is unhealthy to grind too much with creating music, with creating your art. There are some that are going to be very upset about that. There are some that believe you need to, the sole reason for you existing is so that you can sit in front of a computer and just make music, and period, end of discussion. You should not be doing anything else. Grind. That is not me. That is not you. What would you say to those people that just feel like they need to grind, even if they're just slamming their heads against their laptops?
If you're able to do it, then yeah, I think that's awesome. I'm just not able to do that. At a certain point, I think I just get this block, and nothing really gets done at that point, where I need to step away and do something else and then come back with like fresh ears, because the making music is a very much like it's a very psychological thing, where like, if you're hearing something over and over and over again, it gets kind of like ingrained in your head as that's how it sounds. And if you're not giving yourself a chance to step away from it for a little bit, and it normally takes a little bit of time, like at least like 30 minutes to an hour, you come back and you notice like 50 things that you would have noticed if you just stood there for like 14 hours at your computer. But if you're able to do it, that's awesome. I'm just not cut out to do that. I wish I was. Maybe one day. But
so what's a normal session time like for you? Like, are we talking 30 minutes? We're talking a couple hours before you need to take a break? What does that look like for you?
It's usually like a couple hours, and that's like 2-3 hours, and then I'll like take a break. And it's not always video games. A lot of times it's just a walk. I'm also doing this like fitness program right now, and that's kind of takes a lot of time, so I got to do that. I have to take a break in order to do the program. But it's important to balance everything out. That's why you got to try and manage your time well.
Is there a particular video game or form of art that you can attribute a lot of the Nurko inspiration to? Is there something like that you go to reignite the Nurko flame?
On the surface, it's probably going to be kind of random, but if you play the game, you'll understand. But I also don't want to, I can't give any spoilers. but it would be Red Dead Redemption 2. You play that, I'm assuming?
Oh, of course, dude. Oh my, I cried my eyes out.
Yeah. So that's why it affects my music so much. I do that with movies, with whatever it is. If it connects emotionally at this like extreme level that game did, it helps my music a lot because my music is very feelsy and kind of emotional. So that game would be the hands down would be like the biggest. Like I don't really look to sound like Western music, but the emotional impact that game had is like nothing I've ever really experienced it, and it helped my music a lot. It was such a work of art.
We've been talking about different ways to help with that childlike love of creation. And one of the things that we talked about before we started recording is that recently you just got out of a relationship amicably. Is that how we say it? Is that the correct pronunciation? Amicably? How do you say it, Jack?
Amicably, yeah.
Amicably. And so no shade whatsoever to your partner. But in this instance, it was actually a good idea. It was actually net positive because it has been affecting your music in a positive way. Am I understanding that correctly?
Definitely.
Tell me more about that. Why do you think so?
I think that it seems to be just across the history of music, heartbreak tends to have a pretty profound effect on the result of music because it's such a strong emotional time for you that your music kind of reflects that in a way that if you didn't have that heartbreak and those hard times, your music might not have not caught the same emotion that the song connects. So I noticed that after it happened and dealing with the whole heartbreak and just the whole turmoil of it all, I put it all into the music and things just kind of started to happen in a positive way in the music. It's almost like my feelings were going into the song, whereas they might have not before if I didn't go through this kind of heartbreak.
The translating of the heartbreak feelings into the song, which has been causing the music to be at a higher caliber. Am I understanding that correctly?
I would say, yeah. You know, I mean, there's like a running joke from people. They'll be like, "Oh, I need my heart broken. Like, my music's not good. I need my heart broken." And then all of a sudden, because it's like I don't know why. It just heartbreak for some reason, as horrible as it is, it does affect the quality of your work sometimes. Not always, you know. Sometimes you might just be really stressed out and you just can't really get into it. But ups and downs. But it's important to kind of put that in your music if you can.
I'm interested in knowing where in, like, if we want to call it the heartbreak cycle, you were when you created that, right? Because usually, at least I'm speaking for myself, in the past, if there's something I'm heartbroken about, like for the first little while, I'm useless. Like I can't create anything. I can't, you know, I can barely show up. But it's after there's like a certain amount of healing that's been going on, then you can reflect back on that pain and convey it. I mean, is that how you work as well?
I would say, yeah. It's like there's like a period of kind of just, you know, settling into everything, like you were saying, where you're just like, you know, watching movies and just trying to deal with the pain. But then that once you get to a certain point, it's almost like where you're at this reflection stage of I call it grief because it is a form of grief. It's not the same. It's not obviously not the same as like something like that, but the same kind of cycles apply. Like I would say, like once you get to the reflection phase where you're kind of able to heal a little bit and kind of get back on your feet to an extent is when I started to notice that the whole creative process was just flowing. Everything was just flowing.
This brings up a bigger concept of taking the hard things that happen in your life, big emotions, traumatic experiences, hard times, and utilizing that energy in a healthy way. In this case, it's creating art. Do you have any pro tips of how to help people know how to do that? Because all of us are going to go through a heartbreak somehow. All of us are going to go through some kind of trauma. All of us are going to go through a hard time, but not all of us are going to be able to translate that into the art that we want. Do you have any pro tips with that?
One of the things that helps a lot of people when you're going through a breakup or, you know, whatever it is in terms of heartbreak, writing in a diary is a very helpful outlet for getting your feelings out. But when I look at making music and like producing music as like its own version of a diary because I'm getting my feelings out in the music. And so look at it like it's a diary, and you don't have to even release any of it. It could just be, oh, I'm really feeling sad. I just want to get these sounds out the way I'm feeling. And sometimes they sound good that you want to release it. And sometimes they're just kind of like, they just helped you. They're like a form of therapy in a sense. Same way people like will paint and they'll like angry paint and stuff like that. Like I look at music as like a bit of almost like a form of therapy. So I think that's why, it worked out in terms of the heartbreak being a positive turn of events in terms of music. It's hard to go through a breakup and not feel some sense of, I mean, depending on how the breakup went for other people, but feeling some sense of rejection from the breakup is almost like fuel to like make something really good. With the rejection aspect, you take a little bit off, your ego takes a little bit of a hit there. So you kind of have this drive to make something that feel like, oh no, look what I can do. I can make this. It's almost like a little bit of a competitive aspect. It's more just for yourself, for feeling, a little bit more fulfilled.
Do you still feel like you're in that creative wave that has been created by the breakup?
I would say, yeah. It's been a little bit of time, but I would say it's still going a little bit strong there.
Another thing that we talked about before we started recording was you were talking about how through a lot of your music career, there's been a very significant amount of self-doubt. I know you want to talk about self-doubt in relation to the music industry and your music. I do wonder though how this self-doubt is playing into it with do I even want to go down that route? That's like I'm like playing therapist now, Jack.
I think it's okay because I think a lot of people feel the same kind of way.
Maybe like you were saying, the ego is coming in and being like, I'm not gonna let that self-doubt eat me. I'm gonna make better music, and that's kind of pushing you. You see what I'm saying? Am I piecing this together correctly?
Yeah. It's I think the point is it's a wave of different emotions. Like sometimes you're feeling really inspired and really good, and you're kind of rolling on that wave of like, I'm going to make something really great. And then there's sometimes when it's like, I'm not loving this right now, what I'm working on. And you start to feel a little bit more self-doubt and those kind of aspects. It's just like the psychology of a music producer. Like sometimes I think a lot of people I know feel the same way. Like if they're not making something that's like amazing, they start to like question life. Like it gets pretty extreme. Like, oh, everything's ruined. I don't have it anymore. Blah blah blah. All those kind of thoughts that are just negative thoughts. Sometimes enter in a non-healthy kind of way. Yeah, a lot of times you can just talk to yourself and say, that's not true. I don't even know where you're getting that from.
Are you afraid that if you continue to heal from the heartbreak, that the inspiration is going to go away? That motivation, that inspiration is going to go away? No,
because a lot of in my particular situation with the breakup, a lot of the whole breakup process was very stressful, like extremely stressful. And that was getting in the way of making music. Whereas now that all that stress is kind of dissipated, I'm able to kind of have a little bit more of a mental clarity. I still think the music's kind of still get to where I want it to be.
Tell me more about the self-doubt that you felt specific to the Nurko project. That could be in relation to you perceiving how fans see you. That could be in relation to how people in the music industry see you. Just tell me more about that. Where does the knife really get twisted?
It's more of where I'm not able to release for a long time. Like once you get into the music industry kind of side of things, a lot of times in order to, get to the product to where, it's supposed to be, a lot of times that requires not releasing until it's, gone through the whole music industry process in a nutshell. But that requires you not like releasing sometimes for quite a while. And I came from, putting a remix out every month, putting a song out every month, just like flooding the system with music. And then the self-doubt kind of comes from where I have to stop for a second. I'm working on everything, but I'm not able to release it. And I sometimes get worried that like, I don't want to lose like that steam because I'm not releasing music for a while. Again, like some artists, like if you're like Skrillex and stuff, you can take like 10 years and not put a song up, but then he'll put something out and it'll just be the biggest thing. My self-doubt comes from like, oh, well, I'm not Skrillex, so I don't want to wait too long, but sometimes I don't have much of a choice with the music industry side.
If we remove money, fans, views, pleasing people in the music industry, if we were to remove all that, which version do you like more? The releasing, like the quantity is much lower, but the consistency is much higher, releasing one song per month? Or is it, would you prefer waiting 2 years and then just blasting them with like a 20 album piece of work? You know what I mean? Or not 20 album, holy crap, 20 song piece of work. Like what do you prefer if you removed all those, anxiety inducing factors?
I mean, I probably would prefer to just, for me to probably release like the 20, wait and then release the 20 song album, just because my whole brand a lot of it is, very story driven and there's a lot of art that goes on outside in terms of the brand and the story and the colors and everything, that I feel like that would make more of an impact than just releasing every month kind of. So my self-doubt, not to go back to that too much, but it came from, I don't know if I'm at the point where I'm able to do that. I don't know if people are going to stick around and wait like 2 years. Some might, but some, people might not.
So it's not that you're frustrated because you can't keep releasing every single month the way that you used to. It's that now that because of where you're at in the music industry, you're kind of forced into this place of having to make a big body of work, but only release it, years apart. But you're afraid of, are the fans going to stick around for that kind of release process? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, like that would be my, that's where my self-doubt would come through. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you found anything to help it?
Playing when I play headline shows and people still are coming out. So I it's a nice reminder that, fans are still there. Fans aren't going anywhere. I think seeing other artists do it, a lot of my favorite artists are all eventually taking however long they need to put out the album or whatever it is, mixtape, which is like Skrillex just did and stuff like that. Yeah, people kind of know they're in there cooking. They're not just like giving up and stuff. Like,
do you feel much pushback from the fans? Is there been like a pretty loud voice of people that are upset?
I don't think that people are upset. There'll be people like, oh, where's new music? Where's new music? But once I kind of explain, like, I'm working on it, like, it's a little bit of a different process than what I've been doing in the last, a few years ago. I don't see a ton of that, I guess.
I got some rapid fire questions here for Jack. They're not rapid fire questions. Someone really needs to change the title of that, but we're going to ask them anyways. So Jack, what is a belief about yourself that you had to kill or change in order to keep growing as an artist?
Unfortunately, I think I had to kill the idea that I can make like every single genre and be able to make something in all the genres that I listen to. Just because I listen to it doesn't mean that I need to make it as my project, as my the songs I release as an artist. So staying consistent to a niche, like a sound, is kind of important. When I first started, I really just wanted to put out everything, where there was moombahton and dubstep and house music and drum and bass and all this different stuff. It just doesn't really work, unfortunately. At least for me. It might work for someone else, but not for me.
I could foresee someone in the comments asking the question, is niching down a form of selling out? Because if you enjoy making those types of music, but you strategically don't make them to grow, is that a form of selling out? What would you say to someone like that?
I would say, you should only make what you enjoy making. If you're making like something just because like it's popular and it's the big thing, I wouldn't say it's selling out. I just think you're not going to be as happy as an artist. And then also in a year, 2 years, that sound that you kind of weren't true to that's popular is going to be not as popular in like 2 years, whatever it is. It's just how the industry works. The popular stuff is not always going to be popular.
Jack, what is an unpopular or controversial opinion that you have about the music industry?
Most artists I know are really nice. A lot of times when you get into the manager aspect and like agents, they are not always as like friendly and as nice. I don't know. Some people don't really like how like artists are so nice, but managers are like not as nice. You kind of need that kind of a little bit of a fine line to work to make the project kind of work. It's not really that controversial. It's more just I noticed it, I guess. It just seems to be a pattern. It seems to be a pattern I've noticed with other artists and then other artist managers. Some artists will be like super excited to work on something and they'll like, everything will be going great. But then their manager will step in and be like, no, never mind. We're going to pull this. And just like, that's happened on my end. That's happened on other artists I've seen it there. And, where artist to artist, sometimes things are going great, but then managers to their artist or whatever it is, sometimes it doesn't always work out.
That is actually something I want to dive a little bit deeper into, because I would love to get some insight into how to handle that, because there's absolutely people listening to this that have lived through that. I have lived through that. I mean, obviously with me, it's like podcast related, but how do you deal with that? Because the scenario of the artist is all on board, they're super stoked. They're not just, they're not just faking it. They're like, yeah, dude, like I would love to collab with you, or I'd love to have you open for my show, or I'd love to come on your podcast, whatever. And then you get the absolute dreadful email that says, which is from the manager, that says, hey, we're going to hold off from this for now. And you're like, wait, hold on. Like the artist was all stoked about it. Why? You know what I mean? There's kind of like this kind of feeling like you don't want to push back on the manager, because then that leaves a bad taste in everyone's mouth. You see what I'm saying? Like what do you do about that, Jack? That's
where you kind of get introduced to the music industry being a little bit of a rough industry. Just kind of got to get used to it. Because it's gonna happen. There's people that are much bigger than me that are still dealing with those kind of things. So once you kind of know that this is just part of the business, the same way that like people that work on Wall Street or in meetings and things don't end up working out on their end. It's kind of like the same kind of thing. Like sometimes just with managers and stuff, that's once there's like money and finances involved, they're looking at it with a different lens than we are. So as long as you remember, the music industry can be a little rough around the edges sometimes. It's not just you that's experiencing it. Everybody has experienced it. I don't think there's like a single artist that hasn't. Like if you were talking with someone that you really wanted to work with and they're all stoked about it, and you got the dreadful email from the manager that says, we're going to hold off from this on this for now. Are you more inclined to kind of push back and say, well, like, oh, wait, hold on. Can we talk about this? Maybe we could do this. Or are you one that says like, okay, once manager has spoken, the law has been laid and we just kind of move on? Like what's your position on that? Yeah, it kind of depends. A lot of times I'll want to know like, oh, what happened? What's going on? But a lot of other times I know that they're saying those kind of things in the nicest way possible. And, a lot of times how they say it isn't always directly what they are actually meaning, unfortunately. Saying, we're going to hold off for now is just the nicest possible way of just saying, we're not going to do this right now. Maybe in the future we will, but I don't want to say, yes. And it's kind of just, that's where it's just like, yeah, I just kind of move on and hope for the best, but don't you got to get a little bit rough edges sometimes in this industry.
Some thick skin.
Thick skin, yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Yeah,
you got to get really good with rejection. How do you deal with rejection? Do you feel pretty good with dealing with rejection, or does it still hurt pretty bad?
No, I'm pretty good with it now. Just because I know it's such a big part of the business. When I first started though, I was like, I did not understand it. Questioning everything, going into like a crisis in my head, self-doubting everything you're doing. But no, just there's so many factors that go into things.
You feel like now that if you get rejected now for whatever, for a collab, for anything like that, it's not attacking your self-worth or like your worth as an artist or anything like that. It's just like, yeah, it's just part of the business.
Yeah, no, it's just part of the business, because it could just be that the song is like good, but it might just not be what they were looking for at the moment. And it sounds great and it's a great song, or if it's like pitching for a singer, same kind of thing. Like it just might not be what the style they're looking for. Like it doesn't mean that it's bad or anything like that. Like that's like the first thing that people go to they kind of think, oh, this must just be really bad when they're not used to rejection, but it's not like that at all, really.
I know there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast. They're terrified to reach out to the record labels. They're terrified to reach out for collabs. They're terrified to reach out for anything at all. Even just to say, hi, you're awesome. You're one of my favorite artists. They're terrified of rejection at the end of the day is what it is, right? Do you have any tips with that? Or are we just going to say the Elden Ring phrase, which is just, you just got to get good. You just got to walk through the fire and deal with all of the nasties along the way. Like what's your suggestions with that?
Yeah, you do have to kind of walk through the fire a little bit. Just put in your mind that rejection is going to come. It's just going to. So I think if once you have that in your mind a little bit, it's better to go through the rejection than to avoid the whole thing completely and miss a potential, opportunity because you didn't, reach out to the label or the artist or whatever it is. They call it shooting your shot for a reason. It's better to shoot your shot than to not do it at all, because that's worse in a way. Because then you're just guaranteeing yourself that it's not going to happen right then and there because you're not taking the shot.
So, Jack, you have taken us down the journey of talking about the childlike creation that gets lost along the way. We've talked about the revolving door of the music industry, how you've been able to take your heartbreak and convey that into music. We've also went off on little side quests about Elden Ring, as well as talking about rejection with collaborating, so on and so forth. And all of that has kind of moved us and got us prepared for this final question that we're going to ask, which is, what is one of the best decisions that you have made for your music career?
All right. So, I would say my best decision would be from my manager's suggestion to kind of expand my team a lot bigger than what it was in the past, where I have, somebody that's doing the branding and the, everything you see visually, but also like the photos. He does both of those aspects. And then I have somebody that's a VJ that is extremely talented, who takes kind of like the branding that my branding guy did and kind of elevates it for live shows. And then I have, a lighting guy who makes the shows even more special. But just like taking things that I wouldn't have been able to do myself and expanding the project to a much bigger basis than just like putting music out. It helps make the project feel like it's more of just a artist that makes music, but more of an artist that has like a whole world to show and a whole experience to show. I know that not everybody's. This took a while for me to get to this point, but I think the point being that it was the best decision. There's other forms of art that will help your project that it's good to kind of like use those tools to your advantage as much as you can.
I have a comment and I have a question, a follow-up question to this. So the comment is, the core of what you're talking about is that in order for your art and your project, your vision, your brand to really get to the limits and expand to the limits of what it has the potential to do, that means that you are going to eventually have to have someone help you do that. Because if you don't, there's just no way that you can do it all. You know what I mean? Jack can't be the producer and the lawyer. Jack can't be the producer and the vocalist on all the songs. Well, I guess you could if you wanted to, but you don't have to. Maybe that's a bad example. Jack can't be the producer and the manager. And so building a team is so incredibly important. And Donation, where you're at right now, the team could very well just be you and ChatGPT. And that's okay. That is awesome. That is a form of you building the team. It could just be you and your buddy that has really good taste and your girlfriend that sings. Like, that's fine as well. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just the concept of allowing other people in to help you build this vision, which leads to my question. How hard is that for you? Because you do have to kind of allow people into your sacred space, the Nurko sacred space of creating, and trust that if you allow this photographer in, they're going to help you build that world this very sacred world that you've been building, or if the VJ in, they're going to help build that world that you've been building. Like, how hard is that for you? Are you pretty chill about it? Like, yeah, I'll just bring them in. If they suck, we'll get rid of them. But, or is there a lot of resistance there? Like, tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's very like handpicked to people that I know are gonna, achieve the goal that I have, and I know that they are just love the project in itself, so they kind of have a natural drive to want to make it even better. I'm a little bit laid back about it, but that's just because I know how talented they are, that I don't like doubt the work that they're going to do. The same way that I don't think they are doubting the music that's coming out is not going to be what they're expecting.
So before we wrap up this episode, you just did a remix for a group out of Japan. Tell us about that, because that is what? Tell me more.
So, there's this they're like this J-pop group in Japan, and they reached out because they just put out their deluxe album, and they wanted to get some, remixers on. And I didn't know who they were, but they're apparently like massive in Japan. So I just kind of rolled with it, and because I liked the song, I made the remix, and I just put it out, and yeah, it's getting a lot of good feedback. I wish I could read more of it, because a lot of times I can't really translate Japanese, but hopefully it's good. But I think it's good. They're huge out there. This group, they're called Sakura Zaka 46. And I think they're this big girl group, and they're just like the same way K-pop artists are. It's the same. It's like the same thing over there in Japan.
Jack, if someone wanted to get into your world, they want to know more about you, what's the best way to go about that? You want them following you on Instagram, TikTok? Where's the best place for that?
Yeah, I would say Instagram and TikTok, just because TikTok I post more just kind of whatever videos of me like working on something. But yeah, I would say Instagram and TikTok would be the best too.
Is there someone who are some people that you would like to come on Behind the DAW to hear this kind of behind the scenes stories?
I think it would be cool to hear Porter Robinson. I know he's pretty massive, but I just really appreciate each project is so vastly different in its own way.
Jack freaking Leach, pretty sure your middle name's freaking. I think I read that somewhere, but thank you so much for coming on the show, man. Did you have a good time?
Yeah, it was awesome. It's awesome to be back.
DAW Nation, listen to me. There's a free download down in the description. Down in the description. It's so hard to say. You have no idea. Down in the description from Nurko that you haven't gotten yet. Go get it. It's lovely. It's free. It's a download. It's in the description. It's everything you've ever wanted. Go get it. Also, if you want the school base, that is down in the description. That's so hard to say. It is down in the description too, or you can go to dawnation.net/schoolbase. If you enjoyed this episode, really, we got down in the description and an episode. Wow. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe wherever you are. We are on all of the podcast things, everyone that's ever existed. We are there. Please follow, please subscribe, please leave a comment, which I guess you can do now. That is just crazy. So if you're on, I guess that's only on Spotify though. Leave a comment wherever you can in any way that you can. And please let me know who else you want to come on the show. What was your favorite part about this? I would love for you to take a screenshot right now and tag me on an Instagram story. Tell me what you liked about this episode. DAW Nation, I love you guys. I am so awkward with endings. See you later, I guess. Peace.